Welcome to Big Muddy Mayhem. This is the podcast where we talk about true crime and bad behavior in the Midwest.
Each week we'll bring you 2 stories from the heartland that might break your heart, but we hope to entertain you along the way.
I'm Tracey Laricha.
And I'm Janet O'Brien.
Hello! Hello! How are you?
I'm good. Good. It's been a week.
It's been a week. I was going to say it kind of has been, but we're here now.
Exactly.
And we're ready to record.
Yes, which is good.
And we're trying a new location. So if you like the sound a little bit better this week, let us know in the comments.
Right.
Send us an email. We are checking out a different space in my house that might make the sound a little bit better.
Right. We'll see how it goes.
Of course, we do still have Blue to contend with, so you might still hear some tippy-tappies.
That's okay.
But that's all right. And then, Janet, how's your week been?
It's been pretty good. I can't really think of anything super exciting other than I had to help my dad out yesterday because his van decided to be goofy.
Womp womp.
Yeah, but he got it fixed today.
Good.
$1,100 later, but he got it fixed.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
That's a lot. Yikes.
But, yeah.
And then we're hoping that the rain will hold off.
Yes, we're hoping so we can go do a zoo thing or something.
Tonight. We can tell you this because you can't stalk us because this won't air for a week. But we are all full of sass and mini tacos, and we're ready to tell you some stories.
We're ready to tell you some stories.
And I think that mine goes first this week,
Yes, it
right?
is. Okay.
Okay, Janet, I had never heard of this story, so I don't know if you have, but I'm going to tell you the story of Theora Hix and James Snook.
Don't know his name, so
all right,
I've not heard of them.
Well, this was this was new for me as well. Theora Hix, she was also called Teddy, as a nickname, which is so cute.
I like that name.
She's born on August 10th, 1904. She's born in Flushing, Queens, which means every time I think about her voice, all I can think of is the nanny. But she probably doesn't have this accent because she is raised in Florida.
Gotcha.
She's the only child. Her parents have been married for over 20 years when she's born. They had trouble having children.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mom is 41 when Theora is born. Mm-hmm. Now, her dad is an educator. Her mother is a homemaker. And Theora is bright. She's also very pretty.
Oh, wow. Yes, she is.
You want to describe?
She has like that 1930s type hair where it's the pen thing.
Like the finger waves.
Yeah, the finger waves.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, and she looks very nice.
Mm-hmm. She's very pretty. She's also she's very serious.
Yes.
And that is her her personality as well. She's very bright. She's very pretty. She's very studious and very private.
Gotcha.
Her parents indulge her and they encourage her mind. So she enrolls in med school eventually at Ohio State University. Now, she is sharing an apartment with 2 sisters. They say, again, she's very private. She keeps to herself. She's never late with the rent or the bills. But she is going to a med school program.
Oh, wow.
At a time when only 4% of doctors were women.
Wow.
Theora is also very, very, very sex positive. She is a spicy girl. She reads books on the topic. She schools her lovers and suggests that they read particular books and articles regarding sexual activity. She has no guilt about the pleasure that she takes in the bedroom, and she is really into experimenting with all kinds of things, like this new thing called fellatio. And
new thing.
I know, right? Who'd have thunk it? Who came up with that? She also likes to experiment with sexual enhancement drugs. So cocaine, marijuana, Spanish fly.
Oh, wow.
Theora is she is a lady in the streets and very different in the sheets. She also likes to have sex outdoors because, as she puts it, I like to go outside where I can scream. So, to no one's surprise, she has a boyfriend. His name is Marion Myers.
Okay.
He's a recent Ohio State University graduate. He knows Theora is not faithful to him. She also loves to use stories to pit her lovers against one another.
Oh, wow.
But he's in love, so he proposes and he asks her if they could be exclusive. She laughs.
Oh, my God.
They part ways, but they will, over the years, occasionally get back together.
Gotcha.
Theora is bright in her studies, but she also isn't wealthy. So to offset the costs of her education, it's not what you think. She takes up work study. You dirty birds. She takes up work study, and that's where she meets Dr. James Howard Snook.
Okay.
So he is born... Okay, so again, Theora is born in... let's see... sorry, we don't have her year of birth. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But anyway, he's born 1979. Or 1879, rather. So he is much older.
Much older, right.
He is studying veterinary medicine at Ohio State University.
Okay.
And he becomes a vet.
Okay.
Now, he pauses for a little bit in 1920 to compete in the Olympics in Antwerp, Belgium.
Oh, wow.
So here is Snook.
Yeah, he looks much older. He's
this
bald.
could be her father.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like her father. He's got the round glasses. He, has no hair on top of his head. He's wearing a suit with a tie. Yeah.
In 1920, he's in the Olympics in Antwerp, Belgium, where he is part of a pistol shooting team and wins 2 gold medals.
Wow.
Like the team does.
Nice.
So he's a twice gold Olympian,
Nice.
He goes back and he becomes the head of veterinary medicine at OSU, where he invents something called the Snook hook.
The Snook hook, okay.
Well, he is a veterinary doctor, like I said, and the Snook hook is a tool that is used in the spaying and neutering of animals.
Oh.
And so it's a surgical tool. The design is his.
Wow.
And it is still used today.
Wow.
On the regular.
Okay.
For veterinary spay. So
wow.
if all of you Muddy Buddies, if you're out there and you've got a dog or a cat, particularly a female dog or cat that has been spayed, odds are good that your animal has been Snook hooked.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's just a long instrument and it curves at the very top. Yep.
So, but it's used for, like being able to move things around without disturbing other internal organs.
Right.
So that you can spay an animal. So it's still used today. And in 1922, just a couple of years after the Olympics, Dr. Snook marries Helen Thatcher Marple.
Okay.
They have a son. He dies in infancy.
Oh.
They, not too long after that, though, do have a daughter that they name Mary. Mrs. Snook is really worried about the health of her child, so she becomes just a helicopter parent.
Yeah.
Right? She is just this overprotective mother, and she kind of starts to neglect her marriage because she is putting so much into her child.
Right.
And Dr. Snook is feeling neglected, which is where we are when Theora meets James.
Oh.
There's work study that she's doing
right.
that leads her to the steno pool. Like she's doing stenography and taking dictation from the vet med department at OSU, and she works with Dr. Snook. Now, 1945, one rainy night, he gives her a ride home to her apartment.
Okay.
They talk a lot on the way. They talk about all kinds of things, and she says that she really wants to find an older man who would know some things. house.
Oh, interesting.
He continues to give her rides home, and they talk about a whole bunch of stuff. Relationships, books, medicine, a lot about sex.
Yeah.
She loans him a few books about sex. Pretty soon, they're not just talking about it. Theora, like I said, gives him some books and suggests that he study up. And then they kind of take it to the sheets. She loves to taunt him, as she always does, with stories about her younger boyfriend, Marion, and tells him all the time that, he's bigger than you.
Oh my God!
And he gives me more pleasure.
Wow.
But this woman is catnip. Right?
Right, yeah.
She's 21. He's 46.
Wow.
Having been both of those ages, I'm not surprised that he's having trouble keeping up.
Yeah. I mean, still a bit.
think back to 46. Think back to 21. He's also got a wife and a 2-year-old daughter at home. So in part of keeping up, or trying to, he is experimenting with drugs as well. Sometimes stealing them from the veterinary clinic because he's the head of the department. So at some point during this affair that lasts nearly 3 years,
wow,
her apartment is broken into, and she's worried about that. So Snook gives her a Derringer pistol, and also, remember, he was a member of a shooting team.
Yeah.
He takes her to the local gun range for lessons, and he teaches her how to use it.
Right.
He also ends up renting a room on the regular, I guess, like hotel rooms, and finding parking lots and stuff gets to be too much trouble.
Right.
So he rents a room from a Mrs. Margaret Smalley. His name is James Howard Snook, but he just rents it under the name James Howard.
Oh, okay.
And Theora is listed as Theora Howard. This is his wife. And, the thing is, they're both, and I don't know how they came up with this as a cover story, they are traveling salt salesmen.
What?
Just going from town to town selling salt.
And
they're just going to need the room periodically. Because they're just passing through from one town to another on their route.
Oh my God.
So they're only there usually for a few hours at a time and almost never overnight.
Wow.
But they're spilling salt 3 times a week. Snook explains his absence to his wife as like, well, I'm either working late or I have to go to the gun range. And she never suspects a thing. It's fine. Wow. She's home with her child. She's very concerned with her child. But they almost, like I said, they almost never sleep over. He's almost never gone overnight. Until, June 13th, 1929, Theora hasn't come home.
Oh.
And her roommates aren't super worried because they do know she has a boyfriend, even though she's really closed-mouthed about it.
Right.
They don't worry until the next day. And so on the 14th, they call the police. Right about the same time that they are calling the police, 2 teenage boys are at the New York Central Rifle Range for practice.
Okay.
They are like 15 and 16, respectively. They see what they think is a pile of clothing on the field.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, well, we knew we would end up
Yeah,
here.
we already know.
So it's Theora. She is, and I don't know why every article mentions this, but she's in a brown dress with white stockings, and she has a bloody handkerchief in her hand.
Oh.
So these teenage boys, they call the police. The police get in touch with the roommates, and they ID her by her clothes and the items that were on her. Like, yeah, that's absolutely her. Those are all her things.
Oh, my God.
She has been bludgeoned to death. Like, pretty badly. Her skull is bashed in.
Wow.
Police think that the murder weapon might have been a ball-peen hammer.
Ugh.
Which, you know what a ball-peen
Yes.
hammer looks like. Yeah. Also, her throat is slit.
Oh, wow.
And both the jugular and carotid arteries have both been cut.
Wow.
And they say in a very clean manner.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mystery at first.
Right.
And it's in all the papers. Marion Myers, the graduate school boyfriend that like proposed to her, well, he had left and he was living in a different town and engaged to a whole other person at this point.
Oh, wow.
But he sees the news in the papers and he's worried about, he's like, God, please tell me that's not true. So he goes back to Ohio and finds out that, like, yes, indeed, it is true. So he goes to the police, where they immediately imprison him for, like, an indefinite length of time.
Oh, my God.
Because this was before Miranda rights.
Right, yeah.
And they question him. They make him look at her body.
Oh, my God.
And they're, like, asking him because, you know, you would think, like, okay, the jilted lover is the person that is probably at fault here.
Right.
But he has a solid alibi, and he's come to them voluntarily, and he does mention that Theora has had other lovers, and there's one in particular that they ought to look into.
Ooh.
And that is Dr. Snook.
Yeah.
So the police go to Snook. He is at home having breakfast with his family. He's very freaking just, like, peeved and, like, how dare you, when they get there. And he's like, well, can I at least finish my meal? The police say, sure, no problem. We're just going to tell your wife why you're being questioned, and then you can come to us when you're ready. And Snook's like, I'll get my coat.
I'll get my coat.
So at first, while they're questioning him, oh, she just worked for me, the poor girl. Oh, I did give her a ride home once. Okay, yeah, I gave her money. Okay, yeah, we were sleeping together. Okay, fine, I bought her a gun. Also, during all of this, because it is in all the papers, the landlady from their little love nest IDs him and says, but that's not James Snook, that's James Howard, and that's his wife. And
no!
Who I've been renting to for the last couple of years.
Oh my God.
So, the murder, and this is all according to Snook, because we really only have his word.
Right, exactly.
As Ryder put it, this is a he said she's dead situation. June 13th, they went to the country club, but Theora wants to go somewhere new so that they can do it in James's new car.
Oh.
He's just bought a 1929 Ford Coupe.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Fancy, well, he's a well-respected doctor making big money.
Right.
Head of department, right? He's just got a new ride, and she wants to ride him in his new ride. So he was going to just park at a country club, and then he's like, no, we'll go to the range. So they go out to the closed rifle range so they can park the car, and she can scream, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, Janet. I know a lot about you. You know a lot about me. I don't know if you've ever tried doing the deed in a car. We don't need to discuss this on microphone because I know at least your mother listens to this.
Yes, she does. And my father.
I'm an orphan, so I can say it. Sex in a car is severely overrated.
Not a lot of room.
Snook says it was, and I quote, unsatisfying for both of us. And then he tells Theora that he has to go home. You know, he's been gone for a few hours. He's got to get back.
Right.
It's Father's Day weekend. he and Mrs. Snook and his daughter are all going to be going up to visit his mom on a road trip the next day. So he has to get home. Mrs. Snook is expecting him. He claims that she says, "To hell with Mrs. Snook." And that he says she starts threatening that he's going to kill, or she's going to kill his wife and get her out of the way, and she's going to kill the child too.
No, she's not.
And she might just kill him.
No, she's not.
But so she has an absolute tantrum. And then she says, "You have got to help me out," and grabs the front of his trousers, undoes them, and begins fellatio. And as he says, she, quote, "didn't do it very nicely."
Very nicely.
She grabs it. She bites down. He says that then he just reaches for the first thing that he can grab, which is this hammer, and he hits her on the head with it.
Oh, no.
But he claims that doesn't stop our girl. He claims she leaves the car, grabbing for her purse along the way, and he's worried that she's going to bring out that gun that he bought her and shoot. So he, in self-defense, cuts her throat.
What? No.
Both sides of her throat.
No.
After the murder, he goes home. His wife had thought that she had heard him come home earlier in the evening and would testify to that. But in retrospect, it sounds like that might have just been like a screen door banging in the wind.
Right.
But when he actually does come home, she comes downstairs and he is in the kitchen in his bloody clothes, which she doesn't see the blood, or so she says, because it's dark, but he's in the kitchen frying himself a hamburger.
Oh my God.
And then they all go to bed.
Wow.
Now, the forensic evidence does not support Dr. Snook's story.
No.
All of the blood is in the car, even though Snook had the next day paid somebody to clean it. The murder weapons are also in the car, in the case, still with blood on them.
Wow.
So the trial is an absolute circus.
I bet.
People are...
Holy cow, yeah. There's a hallway full of people.
Crowded of people. It's a small-ish courtroom.
Right, and then there's people looking inside the car.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So there are 40-ish seats in the courtroom, but more than 300 people line up every day. They sometimes get in line at 3 a.m.
Oh my God.
A couple of things that are notable about this. James Thurber is one of the people that covers this.
Okay.
Like as a journalist. And a guy named Milton Caniff is one of the court illustrators. You know how when you can't take pictures inside the courtroom,
right.
So you have to have...
Right, you have somebody drawing them.
He was also one of the people that would eventually be a primary illustrator for Dick Tracy.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
That's kind of awesome.
So the two of them are there. And the jury, there are 11 men and 1 woman on the jury. Mm-hmm. And yet, even with it stacked that way, they deliberate. Snook is found guilty after 28 minutes of deliberation.
Wow. Guilty. So guilty.
So guilty.
Wow.
They sentence him to death. By chair. In fact, it's a famous electric chair called Old Sparky.
Sparky!
That's at the Ohio State Penitentiary.
Oh my!
There's a whole lot of ghost stories there. Apparently Snook is one of them. I didn't get into that part.
Right.
But they set his execution date for February 28th of 1930. So this is moving fast.
Super fast.
I mean, in this day and age, you never see it.
No.
So he appeals a couple of times, it's upheld, and so on February 28th, 1930, he becomes the very first Olympian to be executed.
Wow.
His last meal
What was his last meal?
You know I looked.
Oh, I know you looked. I know absolutely you looked.
I know. That's my particular murder kink. I want to know what they ate. Fried chicken, lamb chops, mashed potatoes, ice cream, and coffee.
Wow.
That's actually not bad.
No,
like,
that's not
a
bad.
solid 8 out of 10.
No, absolutely.
Snaps for for Dr. Snook, the one thing that I can kind of get behind.
Oh my god.
Also, because this is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Per autopsy, in Hicks's stomach, they found a beef sandwich, a piece of brown paper, which I cannot figure out.
Okay.
I'm like, this was before there were tabs of LSD, I think, readily available. So where did maybe she just tore into that sandwich too fast.
Yeah, that's possible, right?
But also cucumber, strawberry, indica cannabis tablets.
Oh my god.
And Spanish fly. So I don't know, maybe that's why she was so hungry. But Theora's body is returned to New York and buried alongside her family plot by her family.
Wow.
Snook's body is buried as secretly as possible by his wife under the name James Howard. And it stays, the location stays secret until maybe 2005 when I think the Ghost Adventurers go and trail it down.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Find
right?
where it is. And so now, you can go there. And
wow.
a snook hook, again, is still what we use to spay animals.
That is so crazy.
And it now sells, a snook hook is available for $8.09 on Amazon Prime. I looked it up today.
Wow, that's crazy.
And that is the story of Theora Hix.
Yes.
her affair with Dr. James Howard Snook.
I had to look something up while you were telling me that last part because now I just added to my story.
And so my sources for the story, Amazon.com, of course, for the cost of a snook hook, shortnorth.com, True Detective Mysteries Magazine, ColumbusDispatch.com, which had a lot of really great photos. In fact, almost all of my photos came from there. And a podcast called Crimes of the Centuries.
Wow. That was a really good story.
Thank you.
I'm glad they convicted him. That was because normally when people end up on death row these days, it's they could be there for 15 or 20 years.
No, he had not even a full year on death row before, in between conviction and execution.
What was he doing?
Well, I think he was well regarded and well respected, and his wife was kind of inattentive, and he thought well, she doesn't really have anyone or anything, so why can't I?
So dumb. That's so dumb. Clearly that she could have she would have moved on. No problem.
Theora didn't have, and you take a look at a picture of her and you take a look at a picture of him, and
she could have no big deal. He could have said, I am afraid, and she okay, I like having sex, I can go do something else.
She could have had dudes thick on the floor, but I don't know why specifically, but
that's so crazy.
But boy, for this one, but it might have been just that, the power dynamic. I think that the same way that she used to taunt her lovers with stories of the other. Mm-hmm. Oh, my other boyfriend has a bigger one.
Yeah, and maybe he just got enraged or something.
It might have just been more of a.
That is so crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But
that was a really good
not
story.
That she deserved it, at all, but wow. So yeah, there we go.
Awesome. Okay.
And do you have a story for me?
I do. I kind of cheated a little, but it's fine.
Well, so did Theora, or so did Mr. Snook, rather.
Yeah, they were both cheaters. Most of the story does not take place in the Midwest, but it starts there, so that's why I was screw it, I'm doing it because I want to do it. And it's fine. So, you're already going to know who I'm talking about.
Am I?
Margaret Brown, a.k.a. Molly Brown.
Oh, yes! Yay!
Because, come on! why would we not do that?
Is this the Unsinkable?
Yes, the Unsinkable Molly Brown.
I've been to her house.
I've driven past it. I know exactly what it looks like. I have not done a tour of it yet. So anyway, Margaret Brown, a.k.a. Molly Brown, she was born July 18th, 1867 in Hannibal, Missouri.
Yay!
So that's why I went with it. Her parents, they were Irish Catholic immigrants, John and Johanna Tobin. She had 4 siblings, Daniel, Michael, William, and Helen. The parents were both previously married, but both of their spouses had passed away.
Oh.
So they had 2 half-sisters from the previous marriages, Catherine and Mary Ann. The family actually referred to Margaret as Maggie. The reason why we came up with Molly later is because it just fit better with the song.
Right.
So she was never called Molly. She was called Maggie.
Right, I was going to say, I do remember hearing that, and that, like, they called her Molly Brown, but the people that knew her never referred to her as Molly.
She's not Molly Brown. There was a big group of immigrants, Irish immigrants, who ended up in Hannibal around this time. The town doubled in size.
It did, yeah. It did. Like, Hannibal did kind of blow up because you were right along the river, and there was all of that.
There's lots of boat traffic and stuff like that. There was the Hannibal Gas Works, and that's where her father worked, and her mom, just raised the children. Their neighborhood was a tight-knit Irish Catholic community.
Okay.
At the age of 18, Margaret ended up moving. Now, it's funny because I read 18 and then I read something else and it said 19. So somewhere between 18 and 19 years of age, she ends up relocating to Leadville, Colorado. Her brother Daniel was already living there, and so was Mary Ann, her half-sister, and Mary Ann's husband. So she had family in Colorado. She's like, I'm going to move out there. She shared a 2-room cabin with her brother Daniel. Margaret, she started working actually before she left Hannibal, at the age of 13, basically working with tobacco. And during this time, this is a time when there's a lot of industrial work, and they're not, the laborers are not being treated well.
Right.
So she ends up moving out to Colorado, and she ends up working sewing carpets and draperies at a dry goods store by the name of Daniel Fisher and Smith. Daniel, her brother, was actually a miner out in Colorado.
Oh, okay.
The parents, so this is just kind of a hint of what we're going to get from Margaret. Parents were very involved in helping others.
Completely, yeah.
Johanna, her mom, had ties to the Irish resistance because there was a lot of bad things happening in Ireland at the time, and that's why a lot of them ended up here. And John, her father, actually before they moved to Hannibal, was assisting with the Underground Railroad.
Wow, so this is somebody who's, they have been taught to, you put a hand out to people in need.
They're super progressive.
Right, you put a hand out to the people that need you.
Right.
And that's, what she was brought up in.
And she went to school until she was about 13. They were really, pushed education during, the late 1800s. Not everybody went to school, and they're like, no, you need to go to school. No.
And she was, again, just like Theora, she was incredibly bright.
Right.
Incredibly bright.
So...
and encouraged to learn.
Right, absolutely. So, she ends up in Colorado, and she meets James Joseph Brown. His nickname was JJ.
Aww.
He was not rich, but she was trying to decide, her family was really trying to push her to marry a rich guy, but she's like, do I marry for rich or do I marry for love? I am in love with JJ, so I'm going to marry him. So they end up marrying. And, they kind of struggled a little because they're both working and things aren't super awesome. They get married on September 1st, 1886. They have 2 children, Lawrence Palmer and Catherine Ellen. They were also helping raise 3 of their nieces, Grace, Florence, and Helen. I assume that's her half-sister's children. JJ was a mining engineer, and when he explored an ore seam at Little Johnny Mine, it paid off.
Well, it's easier to marry for love and raise money than it is to marry for money and try to grow love.
Correct, exactly.
Yeah.
So in 1893, they arrive into a whole bunch of wealth. He ends up getting awarded 12,500 shares of stock, and he gets a seat on the board at the Ibex Mining Company.
Oh, right, yeah.
So they're now they're they're good.
The money. Yeah.
So Margaret, she would help out by working in soup kitchens to assist the miner families. In 1894, they end up buying a Victorian mansion, now known as the Molly Brown House in Denver, for $30,000, which would be about $1 million today.
Wow.
So they get a nice Victorian mansion. It's still there. You can still go tour it.
Is this the Denver house?
Yes, this is the one in Denver.
It's beautiful. I've been.
Oh, you have?
I have. I've done the tour.
Ooh.
I would say I would let you see pictures, but they actually don't let you take pictures on the inside of the house, just the outside.
Oh, okay.
But it is gorgeous, and like everything is very well appointed and like very carefully chosen, and it's it's neat. It's with Denver Muddy Buddies. If you're ever out that way,
go to the Molly Brown house.
Check it out. Go see the Molly Brown house.
So in 1897, they end up buying another house. They buy a summer house in southwest Denver, known as the Ovoca Lodge. So it's like, it's not, basically a carriage ride, it would have taken them 2.5 hours to get to. So it's like on the outside. Like back then, it was in the country. It's not in the country anymore. Margaret ends up becoming a charter member of the Denver Women's Club to help improve women's living conditions with education and philanthropy.
Right.
So, they have money, and she's like, well, I want to help people out. And again, because of her upbringing with her progressive parents, she is going to continue that.
If we have means, we want to use it to like build a longer table. We want to use it to like give people...
Right, boost them up.
She
became immersed in the arts because, this is the Victorian times, you're rich, you're going to do that. And she became fluent in French, German, Italian, and Russian. So she's
really well educated.
Yes. So I had mentioned the tobacco company at the age of 13. So she, there was an economic downturn in the late 1800s. And so they were really into like trying to help people out.
Right.
And there was a very big progressive movement that had grown out of the social turmoil that was happening. So she was all behind that. She's like, I want to help these people out,
Right.
She ends up joining reformers to install public baths in the courthouse. And she advocates for public parks and for the city and for city improvements. She also worked with Ben Lindsay. He's a controversial reformer who was a Denver judge. He pioneered the first juvenile court system west of the Mississippi River. So, instead of putting kids in actual jail.
Well, up until then, like, if you were a 12-year-old that got caught stealing from the corner store, you would just, like, be thrown into a cell with, like, rapists and murderers.
Right.
And whatnot. And then also, like, with her learning the languages, I don't know if you know this, but one thing they said on the tour is that all of their domestic help.
Oh, yeah. She would, like, if she was having classes.
They could take them
They could take the classes, too.
So, like, if you were Maggie Brown's, like, scullery maid, you might also speak 5 languages.
Exactly.
Because you had the opportunity to learn.
Right. And some of her other Victorian friends were like, oh, you're friends with the help.
No, but they had access to her library, all of her, anything she was learning, she would let anybody that had the thirst for knowledge learn as well.
Crazy. So she was very well traveled. The Browns enjoyed traveling together. In 1902, Margaret and JJ went on a world tour. They went through Ireland, France, Russia, India, Japan, and other places.
Wow.
So they did a whole world tour.
Travel is broadening.
Yep. She wrote travel articles detailing her observations of India's caste system for the Denver papers. So, yeah, she was also, contributing that way as well.
And knew when to be critical, like...
Right. What's that about? So in 1909, after 23 years of marriage, JJ's getting tired of the traveling. He's just like, okay, I can't keep up with you anymore. You're a lot. I mean, this is... No.
Who could, though? She was a lot.
She was a lot. So they end up signing a separation agreement. She received a cash settlement and kept the house on Pennsylvania Street. She received $700 monthly, allowing her to travel and continue her philanthropic activities. They never got a divorce. They just remained separated the entire time. So now we're gonna come to that infamous day, the Titanic. Bom, bom, bom. Margaret went on a trip. She was going to go to Egypt, Rome, Paris with her daughter Helen and two of her friends, another JJ and Madeline Astor. So JJ and Madeline Astor. They're on the other side of the pond. She receives news that her grandson is ill. And she is like, well, I got to get back. I mean, I think he was already ill, but it wasn't looking good. So she ends up booking the first available ship. The Titanic. The Titanic, as probably everybody has heard.
So what happens? Did they make it? Were they late?
So everybody's already heard this, but I'm going to blurt it out anyway. The Titanic was built by the British White Star Lines for $10 million. It weighs 46,000 tons, and it was 882.5 feet long, and it was listed practically unsinkable.
Of course.
Of course. The captain and crew received many warnings about the icebergs on their travels. Shortly before midnight, April 14th, the Titanic is struck by the Titanic strikes an iceberg. Per the Newport Herald, they actually interviewed Margaret. Stated, I stretched on the brass bed at the side of which was a lamp. So completely absorbed in my reading, I gave little thought to the crash that struck at my window overhead and then threw me onto the floor.
I want to know what she was doing. Right? I've read some good books.
After the crash, she heard increasing confusion in the hall. She goes, I again looked out and saw a man whose face was blanched, his eyes protruding, wearing the look of a haunted creature. He was gasping for breath, and in an undertone he gasped, get your lifesaver. She put on multiple layers of clothing, like multiple pairs of underwear and socks and her coat.
No, this was so smart.
I know!
Yeah.
And then she puts on her lifesaver. Some of the other first class passengers were just going back into the room. They're just like, oh, I'm sure it's nothing.
Could we have another cocktail? Could I have another champagne cocktail, please?
She went to, of course, start assisting people to get onto the lifeboats. Finally, somebody just grabs her and says, you are going too. And they throw her.
They pretty much,
did 4 feet.
Her.
She falls 4 feet into lifeboat number 6. This boat had the capacity of 65 people. There were 21 women, 2 men, and 1 12-year-old boy. Wow. So it's not even full. She keeps insisting, turn around, we can save more people.
There are more folks that we can, this boat isn't full, we could still get some more.
Right, and the men were like, no, there's one man on there who's like, we're doomed, we're going to die, we're not even, and so she's trying to uplift because it's mostly women on this boat, she's trying to uplift them. She's like, go ahead and start rowing. That'll keep you warm, you know? And
Right.
yeah, and then some of the women were on the boat with just nightgowns, so she's pulling off those extra clothes.
I have a... I'm showing Janet right now. I have a coffee cup. We'll put a poster.
Here we go. It's the White
Star Line.
White Star Line. That is awesome.
This is the china that was used on the Titanic. I bought this at the Molly Brown house.
Wow.
This is the china that would have been used by third-class passengers,
oh,
by
wow.
the way.
Nice.
You got nicer china if you had more money, but I bought the cheap cup.
Well, that's where we would have been, right? So she ends. Oh yeah, the other thing she did stuff in her on herself before she got out and started helping people was $400 cash.
Mm-hmm. And a tiny little amulet that looked like a cat.
Oh really?
Like a little Egyptian on her travels. She went to Egypt and she had some little kind of good luck thing that she bought that looked like a cat, I believe.
I'm not going to look it up. I'm not
I
going to look
will.
it up. I don't need to buy it. I don't need to buy one. I don't need a replica. I don't need a replica.
Christmas is coming, darling.
Damn it!
Anyway, yeah, no, she had a little amulet too that she brought with her on the boat.
So they ended up rowing that boat for hours. At 4:30 a.m., they finally see the ship, the Carpathia, and they are rescued. She ends up getting onto the boat. She consoles the survivors because there's a lot of different languages
happening. So many families ripped apart.
Right.
And so many different, like you said, different languages, and she can speak all of them.
Right.
So she can communicate with people that wouldn't otherwise be able to.
Right. So she ends up distributing blankets and supplies gathered by the crew and passengers of that boat. And most of the women that were from the Titanic, they were all sleeping in the dining room and in the halls of the Carpathia. After realizing many of these women had lost literally everything, including husbands, children, their valuables, their money, she ends up rallying the first class passengers to donate money for these people. And by the time they reach New York, she has raised $10,000.
And I love the way she did it by shaming.
I know! She's the last passenger to get off the boat. Mm-hmm. They're like, okay, this was just in her blood to help people.
And she's keeping it on a board, so-and-so, Mr. and Mrs., John Joseph Jingleheimer Schmidt donated $10,000, and Mr. and Mrs. Wilhelmina and Jacob whatever donated $20,000. It's so she's making it all public record so that the wealthy people that could do more, Mr. and Mrs. Jeff Bezos gave us $500. But all of the other wealthy people then can see, everyone on this boat can see
who's given what,
and
it's become a competition. That is fantastic.
I know, yeah.
Because she hangs out with these people,
right?
So she knows.
No, she amazing stuff. She raised a ton of money for these people that were going to land on.
Here's your new country. Good luck. Now you don't have anything. Right. Just awful. So that happens. She's fine. 1914, 6 years before, this is what happens after the sinking with her, because she's still an amazing person. 1914, 6 years before the 19th Amendment to allow women to vote. Mm-hmm. She ran for Colorado's U.S. Senate seat. But
I'd vote for her.
She ended her campaign, and because this silly little war broke out.
Oh yeah.
The Great War, World War I. So she ends up traveling to France, and she becomes the director of the American Committee for devastated France during World War I. Also, she contributed to the miners and their families during the 1914 Ludlow coal mine disaster, which basically the coal miners were still fighting with the mine owners, And they're like, we want we want to not work 12 hours a day. We want to work 8-hour days. We want,
no unions.
Yeah, and so there was a union fight that was happening, and some of the miners ended up dying. And basically, the Colorado militia went after them. Mm-hmm. And so she was contributing to that to help the miners. She also, during the same time, so this is all 1914. I'm not even out of 1914.
I know.
She helped organize the International Women's Rights Conference in 1914 to help in Newport, Rhode Island. She worked during and after World War I with the Red Cross in France, and later with the American Committee for Devastated France again, that helped French and American soldiers rebuild areas behind the front line. Mm-hmm. She organized female ambulance drivers, nurses, and food distributors.
Yep. She, I think, was one of the first women to learn how to drive a car.
Wow.
Also, just because she learned how to drive an ambulance and,
And then in 1932, she was awarded the French Legion of Honor in 1932.
That's amazing.
So now we're going to move to JJ. They never got back together, but they never got divorced. JJ ends up passing away September 5th, 1922. Oh. His finances were complicated because he had property and stocks and all that. And the children and Margaret ended up fighting over all of this for 6 years. The children were upset because they were like, you're spending all of your money on charities.
This is ours.
I know!
Man.
They didn't pick up from what she was doing, clearly.
No.
Yeah, they did not get it. JJ, because they were separated, he did already transfer a lot of money to the children already. So we don't know why they were still fighting over it.
They're like, you already got
a bunch of money. Leave her alone. The 1920s, she ended up focusing her energy on personal passions. She really enjoyed theater. She ended up moving to New York City and moved into the Barbizon Hotel. On October 26, 1932, she passed away in her sleep in this hotel. When they ended up doing the autopsy, they found out that she had a brain tumor.
Oh, no.
So
she just didn't know.
Yeah, and I think it was an aneurysm, basically. After she passed away, they had a small ceremony with just family and friends. They were singing, but there was no eulogy, and she was buried next to JJ in New York. Oh. The legacy, of course, is that for being a survivor, she was famous for being a survivor of the Titanic, which helped her promote her philanthropic and activism issues, rights for workers, women education, literacy for children, historic preservation, and bravery.
I don't know. Bluebell here, who has been laying by our feet and being so good. Blue would also like me to tell you that she also founded something called the Dumb Friends Society in Colorado, which was an animal rights organization that would end up becoming what is now
the First Humane Society. I did hear that. I forgot to write it down.
I was going to say Blue would like us to know.
That
she's being very so quiet because she
very First Humane Society.
She wants to know that wants you to know that Molly Brown also founded the first Humane Society. So she was amazing and spoke out for so many, she had a big voice, and power behind her, and she used it to really raise voices for people that didn't have voices. Her whole life. No, she's a hero, and so it's not crime and it's not bad behavior, but it's great behavior, and sometimes we gotta have that too.
Right. Yeah. Now, the thing I did look up at the very end of your story is what was one of the meals on the Titanic. I could not find the very, very last one, but on April 11th, 1912. At dinner that night, they ate oysters, salmon with holiday sauce, beef, squab, lamb with mint sauce, roast chicken, and many other upscale dishes. There was an 11-course meal.
I am betting that the farts on those lifeboats were disgusting. Like, oh, I hope that somebody packed a couple of pairs of pants because...
But that's my story, Molly Brown.
That is an amazing story. I love Molly Brown and I love that story, and you did a fantastic job with it. I'm going to take Janet out back, feed her an 11-course meal, and show her my snook hook. And we'll be right back with What's Nice.
We'll be back with What's Nice.
Hey, Muddy Buddies. It's Tracey here. A few things that we would like to recommend that you do just to kind of help us out with the podcast. First of all, 5-star ratings and reviews. If you review and you comment, that is the best way for us to be seen by new listeners. Also, if you have suggestions for topics, please send them to us at bigmuddymayhem@gmail.com. Also, while we're waiting for Janet and I to become famous podcasters, we do have a request, and that is that if you do something, if you have like an artistic endeavor, you participate in craft fairs, you've got a band, you've got a small business, that sort of thing, write to us. I think that while we're waiting for paid advertisers, we kind of want to be artists that support artists and shout out the people that we know that are also doing awesome things. So again, send an email to bigmuddymayhem@gmail.com, and if it's all right, we'd love to shout you out on the podcast. And right now, I guess it's time for us to get back to What's Nice. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
And we are back for What's Nice.
Yay.
And I believe that I have the first What's Nice
yes,
here.
you do.
We are in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
Home of Ohio State University.
Yes.
And I want to also give a little bit of a shout out to Megan.
Mm-hmm.
Friend
Hi,
of the pod.
Megan.
Hi, Megan. And friend of the pod. I had a couple of things that I was looking at in Columbus because it really does look like a cool little town. And
Right,
it's only
it
maybe
is.
6 hours
Yes.
from St. Louis. But I messaged her and I'm like, I don't love my What's Nice. What do you like about Columbus?
Sure.
And she sent me a perfect suggestion.
Fabulous.
For an educated woman like Theora, she would have loved this. This is a bookstore called The Book Loft.
Oh, nice.
It was established in 1977 in the German Village neighborhood of Columbus, Ohio, which is a historic neighborhood.
Sweet.
It is a 32-room bookstore.
Wow.
It's independently owned.
Wow.
I know, in days of like independent bookstores shuttering right and left. 32 rooms. It's open 7 days a week except for Christmas and Thanksgiving.
Wow.
The building takes up one entire city block.
Wow.
Including a courtyard.
That's amazing.
I know, and the buildings are built pre-Civil War. They used to be a saloon.
Oh, okay.
A cinema. And a couple of general stores.
Oh, wow.
And they have a whole lot of just like festivals. I'm showing Janet pictures.
There's a lot of Christmas lights I can see there. It's
so at Christmas they do that. This is the outside. It's so big.
It is.
That they have 2 different parking lots. You can enter from 2 different places. And then they also do a lot of like outdoor book fairs. Doesn't this look like a grown-up scholastic book fair? So nice. And they also they have a point of entertaining local authors and authors of note and stuff. So there are a lot of book signings and events there. Again, it's called The Book Loft, and it's in Columbus. It's in the Germantown neighborhood. It is 32 rooms long. You could spend I know I at least could spend an entire afternoon perusing that bookstore. And there is a lot of other cool stuff in Columbus. It seems like it's a very cool, artsy...
Yes, it is. I used to have a friend who lived there, and I would go visit her every once in a while.
We have a friend, Jess, who lives up there. And Meg and I were just texting earlier today and was like, oh, we ought to go up and we ought to visit Jess. And one of her aunts, one of her favorite aunt and one of my favorite people too, is up there. And apparently also there is a zoo in Columbus where they have koalas and manatees.
Oh my God.
So I smell a trip to Columbus.
Yeah.
My big money future. But when there, I am definitely going to have to make time to check out the Book Loft in Columbus, Ohio.
Wow.
And that is my What's Nice.
That's awesome.
All right. Do you have anything nice?
Yes,
for
I
me?
do. So since we started in Hannibal, that's where I'm going to go.
Love Hannibal.
So my What's Nice is the Mark Twain Riverboat.
I want to go.
Have you ever been on it?
I have not. I've been to Hannibal, but I've never been on the river.
Yeah, I think I've done it twice now. I did it once with my parents, and I did it another time with Patrick, with my son.
Nice.
So this boat was built in 1964 at the Dubuque Boiler and Boat Works. It is 120 feet long, 33 feet wide, and it has a 6-foot draft. It has a capacity to hold 350 passengers.
Oh, wow.
It is wheelchair accessible.
Nice.
It basically is on the Mississippi River. So, like I said, I've been on it twice now. My parents were in a cabin out at the Merrimack River.
Right.
As most of my friends know. And
one of our favorite places.
Right. There's a guy he's 2 cabins away. They call him Captain Ed. He actually used to run this boat at one point.
Did he?
Yes.
I want to meet him. We should interview him.
So I make fun of him because I'm like, okay, so your job is, he's a captain. That's what his job is. And you come to the river so you can drive your boat on the river. He likes boating a little. Just a bit.
A tiny bit.
Just a tiny bit. They do tours. So the tours, basically you can do just they're family fun tours, adventure, storytelling. You can do a sightseeing 1-hour tour for $25. They have a 2-hour dinner cruise for $55.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's just a nice little boat. It kind of goes up and down.
Do we know what's for dinner? That's going to be my thing on this podcast. Just what are we eating?
What are we eating? Right.
Because all right, so Janet and I have
a delicious dinner buffet. There's live musical entertainment, and you can dance and watch the scenery.
Say more about the food, please. Whenever I travel with Janet, my big thing is always just where are we going to get snacks? What are we going to
Apparently on Sunday through Friday nights, you can enjoy music by Adam Ledbetter. He plays the piano, and David Dam plays a variety of instruments. Mm-hmm. Saturday nights, they do a tradition of music on the river contains modern jazz, big bands, blues, just anything that you would think you might hear on a river. They depart at 6:30 in the evening, and they don't really have a menu.
Tell you what
no, they just say buffet.
Oh.
I know.
All right. Well, I am sure that if they are taking care to do this, and it's been going on for as long as it has, then the food is going to be good.
Right. So yeah, it's a really it's a fun thing to do. I do enjoy it, and they're very nice when they talk, and you get your little picture taken when you're going, getting on the boat that you can buy where you're holding on to one of those life preservers.
Do you remember what you had?
I only did the day tour with
Oh,
Patrick.
okay.
I think I had like popcorn and a soda. So
That's okay. Popcorn and a soda is good enough.
Right. So yeah. So that's what's nice. You should totally do the Mark Twain riverboat. Is always fun.
I haven't been to Hannibal since I was in college.
Oh, really?
And so, yeah, I would be up to go again.
Yeah, well, I do sometimes just do a Sunday drive with my parents. Just go up there, kind of wander around, eat food, and then come back.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's my what's nice.
All right. Well, we've gotten to the end of another couple stories, and we really thank you for hanging out and getting muddy with us.
Very much. It's very much.
Again, like we said during our little break in between the stories, if you've got something that you want to promote and there's a way that we can help you, then
shoot us an email.
Shoot us an email and we'll try to start doing that.
Exactly.
Once in a while, from time to time.
That would be good.
And in the meantime, I guess that it's time for us to remind you also to
stay Midwest nice.
Stay Midwest nice.